Hello everyone and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Paris for the MSEM format. I'm Caillou and today we're going to be watching the round 3 match between Chumbeque, who is on MonoWhite tempo, versus Tumbles, who's playing mono-green aggro. Or actually, sorry, red-green counters aggro, but mostly green, as you can see from the opening hand here. But yeah, there's been talk about like MSEM's mana bases being too greedy or too easily enabling multicolored strategies, but both these players are slugging it out with their aggressive builds, just trying to essentially the no frills attached. We're gonna go in. I think that Tumbles is slightly favored in this matchup because lots of Chumbeque's cards, like for example Tal, focus on cutting off non-creatures. Disseminate is going to be really good in this matchup though, but Tumbles is going to have a nice curve out. Elvish Opportunist into either turn 2 Wild Lifescale, turn 2 Kati, or just put the counter on it and then go turn 2 Sack Bull, turn 3 Wild Lifescale. So it looks like it's just going to put the counter on, go for the natural curve out. Chumbeque's just going to instantly disseminate that. And Disseminate is really good in fighting off these early creatures, while its value does drop off in the late game, but still a terrifying card to play around. So is Chumbeque going to tap out for the Tal or try to hold up a Judicial Verdict? He's going to tap out for the Tal, probably naming Planeswalker because I don't think Tumbles has other non-creatures, which is going to cut off the Kati turn 3 line. No, okay, he's going to name Sorcery. What are the sorceries in Tumbles' deck? Oh, does have 3 copies of Scorch, but on the other hand does have 4 copies of Kati. I suppose the thought with the Scorch thing is to prevent Tumbles from being able to immediately kill Tal and then play something else. And also maybe the thought that Kati is less scary on an empty board. But yeah, Tumbles is going to take these fetch lands and but next turn is going to get value out of them with the Sack Bull. Chumbeque might just untap and disseminate this before Tumbles has a chance to do that, though. Okay, swings in with Tal for 2, and is just going to pass. He's just going to hold up the Judicial Verdict instead of trying to go in with Disseminate. Tumbles can, at this turn, swing in for 4 with Sack Bull and still hold up a mana for Disseminate. So, I'm not sure about this from Chumbeque, but we'll see. Also because, again, Disseminate, if your opponent's tapped out, I think you would just immediately hard crack the Disseminate because the chances are future turns they won't be as nice with not leaving up mana. So it looks like Tumbles is going to buff it up only once and then swing in, and then is going to pass. I guess playing around double Disseminate, perhaps? But yeah, now Chumbeque is kind of in a bind because despite starting off faster, Tumbles can grow the Sacrificial Bull to the point where they have a faster curve. So that's going to be a distinct issue. So is Chumbeque going to tap out for a Tati? It looks like is going to tap out for the Tati. And Tati definitely makes maintaining the clock a little bit harder. And Tumbles can't buff up the Sack Bull to a 5/5 to be able to kill. Oh, interesting. So it's going to... But still can exile the Disseminate, so yeah, that's gone. He doesn't have to exile the land cards. Land cards are just the best ones. But yeah, I think not disseminating the Sack Bull on the turn where Tumbles was tapped out was a greedy mistake from Chumbeque, and might actually just pay for it right here. So it looks like Tumbles drew an Interon Soothsayer, which is fine as a 3/3 that can buff stuff up. Kati is also really good here as either like card draw or can buff up. You can -2 and just use it as a pump Yeah, just use it as a pump spell. Or actually, no. Yeah, no, wait. You can Wild Lifescale and then get Sacrificial Bull to a 5/5, kill Tati, hit 2 for face. That actually sounds like the best play. You Wild Lifescale and just have it gain haste. Yeah, I think that's probably the best play for Tumbles. And yep, is going to cast the Wild Lifescale. Okay, and is doing that line Wild Lifescale 2 at face, proliferates on the Sack Bull, and Tati bites it. So now threatening 8 damage next turn. Actually, wait, does Tumbles just have lethal next turn if Chumbeque attacks? I think Okay, no, Tati's going to come down and make some chump blockers. Yeah, that is definitely quite annoying. Yeah. Um, Otherwise, Kati just buffing up the creatures, I think, would just be lights out for Chumbeque right there. So yeah, he's just going to swing in with the Tal, thinking that the gnomes are good enough blockers right here. Top deck Scorch makes things a lot more interesting, though. Um, what is the line here? Just play Interon Soothsayer and then swing with both the life scale and the bull at Tati? I don't know. Kati to buff also seems like a not bad line. The Scorch actually costing 2 makes this a little bit harder because if Chumbeque tries to, or sorry, if okay, no, Tumbles is going to go for the Kati and has the extra mana to be able to pay for a Judicial Verdict, so Chumbeque is not having a good time there. Okay, go big, go home. Buffing each of these by +2/+2, and then Wildlife Scale is going to be able to proliferate that further, taking it up to an 8/8 and a 5/5. Neither of them have Trample, but Chumbeque is going to have to keep chump blocking with these gnomes while digging for an answer. Interesting. Swings the Life Scale at Tati and Bull at face. And yeah, there's no reason for Chumbeque not to just chump with the gnomes. I think that playing Kati was maybe the wrong move there. I think you would much prefer to Scorch one of the gnomes and then swing both at Tati to just guarantee her dying. So Chumbeque is just going to be drawing a bunch of counter magic, which isn't super useful here, but the Tati can stall out the board while Chumbeque wins in the air. So unless Tumbles mounts a response here, Chumbeque could just sneak away with the win here. Okay, and it's going to kill the Kati. See, I think Moment of Truth, Tumbles has to just go for the Tati. Or sorry, go for the gnome with the Scorch. Yup, is going to do that. And then just swing for the hills with Sack Bull plus Wild Life Scale at the Tati, and then next turn you guarantee a win. Okay, so Tati dies. Interesting. Tumbles attacked Tati with both, but Chumbeque still chump blocked for some reason, even though Tati would die either way. I think that was just kind of a reflex to block, but I think that was a mistake. Or might be doing that in order to try and rip a third Tati and then be able to +1 with the gnomes there. That is actually a big brain play. So Chumbeque is just going to Judicial Verdict the Interon Soothsayer for the Scry. Tumbles did have a mana up, but is just going to let the Soothsayer get countered. Potentially to hold up mana for a Disseminate, or that might be the justification. And yeah, Chumbeque doesn't top deck a Tati, but does top deck to, I was going to say another 1 white card, but evidently that's not good enough for Chumbeque, who's going to concede. And we're moving on to game 2. And yeah, I think that matchup proved just as brutal as expected, though I think the big misplay in my opinion that really shaped the course of that game was Chumbeque not just hard disseminating the Sack Bull when he had the chance. But yeah, before game 2, let's look at sideboarding. So looking at Tumbles' deck, Sacrificial Bull I think just as a non-spell mana sink just puts in a lot of work. Ruinous Naga is not super great here. It's mostly great against fetch lands and stuff, but the only real target is Ostracizer Orb, so definitely not. Same for Lage's Greenblade. Howling Alpha is good because it can't be countered. Rages of the Ravaged, I think Chumbeque has some life gain, but I don't remember, so maybe. Storm Surge, I don't know that. I guess more removal is fine, but I think that Howling Alpha, Sack Bull are the main ones, and then maybe some number of Rages or Storm Surge, but Tumbles' main deck is more than equipped. It's really just bringing in the right threats, is how I feel about it. Meanwhile, let's look at Chumbeque's. Helena is good at clogging up the board. Buried by Time is not for this matchup. Mortal Pilgrimage is, I think, the problem with Mortal Pilgrimage is, I think it is Chumbeque's best removal, but it is also really bad against most of the creatures which buff themselves anyways, so I think you probably bring in the Mortal Pilgrimages in this matchup because it's aggro, and then you bring in the Helenas. The Mortal Pilgrimages really should have been out-of-body experiences, though. I think that, like, this might have been, like, a cheeky tech choice, but I think it's going to end up hurting Chumbeque a lot in this specific matchup. Okay, getting into game two, looks like Tumbles did bring in the burn with the Storm Surge. And, ooh, we saw that Chumbeque brought in the Helenas for blocking, but mulled that hand away. Goes to, I think that's, the previous hand was a one-lander, so that makes sense. This one is a three-lander, and did bring in the Mortal Pilgrimages and Disseminate, so this is a pretty anti-aggro start, honestly. I think that this is probably the best that Chumbeque can hope for, but will it be enough is the question. I think the awkward part is, oh no, what happened? Did Chumbeque bottomed a Plains? I think that's a mistake, because you want to be able to disseminate to answer things on curve, and the Sunrise Plains isn't doing you a lot of favors here. Oh no, wait, it auto untaps. Never mind. Yeah. So we'll still be able to answer the Worried Vulpine on curve. The problem is really just how many threats Tumbles has, because right now Chumbeque effectively has 4 removal spells, while Tumbles has 4 threats, but Disseminate can be played around. So if Chumbeque loses that and Tumbles can just land a threat, Tumbles' threats are just so much better at winning the game. And interesting, Tumbles not going to be playing the Worried Vulpine turn 1, just going to be orchestrating the Storm Surge. That is a choice. I feel like normally you would play the Worried Vulpine out, but maybe is hard playing around Disseminate. And turn 2, Chumbeque with the Ethereum Abrogator. This doesn't really turn off any of Tumbles' creatures right now. And there's a 5th threat right there, but needs a 3rd land to be able to cast this one, unlike the others. And Tumbles playing the Flourishing Crevasse and then passing, not... Tumbles is really, like, hard playing around this Disseminate, and I don't know if it'll pay off, but if it does, it'll be huge. But I think, like, the tempo gain Tumbles is giving Chumbeque might be a little bit too much, especially since you need to play most of your threats are 2-drops, and you need to just play them at some point. Okay, Helvala is going to be quite a get if Chumbeque can draw a 4th land. And another threat from Tumbles. I think at this point you just want to try jamming to force Chumbeque to run out of resources, because you have more cards in hand and you have more live cards in hand. Okay, going to be playing the Worried Vulpine. Storm Surge comes off exile and is able to kill the Ethereum Abrogator. So actually, yeah, now Chumbeque can't really just top deck a land and then rip Helvala. On end is going to try and Mortal Pilgrimage the Worried Vulpine, but that is an illegal move because Mortal Pilgrimage is a sorcery. So let's go for the Judge Call. Okay, so the Judge Call has been made. We've rewound back to the point where Chumbeque initially attempted to play the Mortal Pilgrimage. Is now just going to play it on his main phase, and then is going to tap out for the Ethereum Abrogator, which of course the notable advantage that Chumbeque would have gained from casting a Mortal Pilgrimage on Tumbles' end step is that would have still been able to have mana up for the Judicial Verdict that Chumbeque top decked and then had to shuffle away. But yeah, he's going to play the Sack Bull. Chumbeque better Disseminate right here. Okay, yeah. Learned his lesson from last game, just going to Disseminate the Sack Bull. Being stuck on 2 lands is really going to hurt Chumbeque this game. And a Tati for Chumbeque is quite good. And just going to +2 to get the counters. Next turn can -4 and grab a Tall, probably. And that's a 3-drop and not a second land. This game is looking like it's rapidly flowing away from Tumbles. He's going to play an Interon Soothsayer pass. Chumbeque can just... Ooh. I was going to say Chumbeque could Mortal Pilgrimage that. Or if Chumbeque wants to get greedy, you play a Plains, Helvala, and then just go for broke to out-aggro Tumbles. Because you hit for 6 this turn, you search something with Tati, you're going to be able to just kill next turn. Yeah, okay, here comes Helvala. Does Chumbeque have Time Stream Sentinels with Helvala would be really good, being able to search up with Tati. I don't think Chumbeque has that, but definitely something to consider. So Yup is going to hit Tumbles for 6. And yeah, Tumbles is going to concede there. That was a really painful set of draws for Tumbles. So now we're 1-1 going into the last game. Helvala really just cut off whatever outs Tumbles may have had, because can't kill 4/4s because all of his removal is burn, and also at that point didn't have a way to put on a faster clock. Oof, and getting into game 3, Tumbles immediately starts off with a no-lander, mulls into a nice 2-lander, which also has Elvish Opportunist ramp possibilities. Like turn 1, you play the Clay Mesa, Elvish Opportunist into another Elvish Opportunist, and then maybe you can like either make it into a 2/2 so you're hitting for 3 on turn 2. And it looks like bottomed the... I'm surprised Tumbles bottomed the Emirabi's Disciple, because I think that like more so than the multiple Scorches, you want to be able to get on board. And is playing the Clay Mesa tapped? I feel like Tumbles has been taking some very, very conservative lines that I don't know if I agree with. Because you could go Elvish Opportunist, have the treasure, and then still be fine. And it looks like draws back the Emirabi's Disciple anyways, even after bottoming it, saying, can't get away from me. So now is going to play the Elvish Opportunist, pass, not even going to try and cast another Elvish Opportunist. That doesn't seem very opportunistic of Tumbles. Meanwhile, on Chumbeque's side of the table, doesn't have a threat until turn 3, but Ostracizer Orb can take out something big. Invalidate is kind of dead here, honestly. The Tumbles swings in for 1 with the Elvish Opportunist, and then probably main 2 Emirabi's Disciple. Yup. And, oh no, not Elvish Opportunisting there means that Chumbeque's just going to untap, immediately Ostracizer Orb the Emirabi's Disciple before it can start buffing stuff up. And another Ostracizer Orb is a great top deck for Chumbeque, because right now does not have to care about this Elvish Opportunist. Chumbeque has better threats. Also, I think that not tapping the Sunrise Prairie does save Chumbeque a life, but it also means that Tumbles doesn't have to play around Judicial Verdict. I don't know how relevant that is, because I guess plays around Invalidate and Judicial Verdict the same way. But also doesn't have to play around, let's say, Double Disseminate and stuff like that. The top decked Wild Life Scale is probably just going to eat another Ostracizer Orb. Oh, it's going to run out the Elvish Opportunist first. Okay, buff itself up, and then go to end. Okay, baiting some removal there. Chumbeque does have the Mortal Pilgrimage, though, so it can just use that on the Elvish Opportunist. Okay, yeah, it's going to run out the Toddy, but I think should definitely Sunrise Prairie as well to kill the Elvish Opportunist. But first is going to +1, make some gnomes, and then, yep, Mortal Pilgrimage coming out to kill the Elvish Opportunist. Tumbles refuses to stop drawing gas, though. Primal Ruffian coming out. And again, Chumbeque doesn't have board wipe, so we'll have to just kind of fight this on board. So Tumbles is going to swing in with the Elvish Opportunist at Tati. I think you can just safely trade a gnome here. Like, I don't think there's any reason not to, honestly. Yeah, because if Chumbeque had let it through, was risking it getting killed by Scorch. Risking the Toddy getting killed by Scorch, that is. He's going to run out the Scorch anyways to kill the Toddy. Looks like maybe it's just going to double Scorch it. Oh no, it's going to be Primal Ruffian coming down. Why not the double Scorch? Like, why would let Chumbeque... If you're going to kill it with the Scorch anyways, why let Chumbeque recover the life? That just seems... I don't know what Tumbles is thinking, but that feels like a misplay. Maybe thinking of, like, hasting out the Wild Life Scale next turn. And then at that point being able to kill it guaranteed without the Scorch. Maybe there's some line there. But yeah, Helena is going to make that a lot harder. So yeah, now Chumbeque's got the ground nicely jammed up. Can create 3 tokens every turn cycle to chump if Tumbles just tries to attack in that way. A Siege Shrine can buff up the Ruffian. So then, let's say you give Wildlife Scale haste. It attacks as a 3/3. Ruffian can attack as a 2/3. Or sorry, yeah, it can attack as a 3/4. But again, none of them have evasion, so they can't get past these. So it doesn't end up mattering. Like, Tumbles has to run out the Scorch on the Toddy to have a hope to get back into this game. Okay, is going to try and cast the Wild Life Scale. Chumbeque is going to invalidate that, but Tumbles is going to pay with the treasure. Going to give it haste with the Riot. Siege Shrine on the Wild Life Scale. So the reason Chumbeque played the Invalidate there was to get Tumbles tapped out for the Disseminate. Okay, yeah, Primal Ruffian, Wild Life Scale both attacking Helena, but then Chumbeque can chump block, untap, double Disseminate, kill the board, and then can plus Tiny Heroine Toddy first, getting 2 gnomes, plus Helena, get a cleric, kill all of Tumbles' things, and I think that pretty much just puts Tumbles out of the game at that point. Chumbeque top decking a land, but it doesn't even matter because everything that Chumbeque needs is already on the field or in hand. Oh man. And Chumbeque just runs out the Disseminate pointing to the Wild Life Scale, and Tumbles doesn't even hesitate in conceding. And that was crazy. I think this was a matchup where Chumbeque was distinctly disfavored, but the Planeswalkers really helped in being able to gum up the board. And then Tumbles just didn't have any evasion to be able to fight through them. And that kind of just crushed Tumbles both games. But yeah, good games to both players. And I think this is a surprisingly good showing from MonoWhite Tempo. And I think with this, I don't know how it did round 2, but that's a win in round 1 and in round 3. So if Chumbeque wins the round 4, they're a shoo-in for the top cut. So it's really impressive with a new brew such as this. But yeah, until next time, this is Caillou signing off.